Sorry about that. Oh, sometimes that's how it be. I got a phone call meant for another friend of mine, and now that's taken care of, at least for the time being. To anybody who arrived exactly at 10 and then immediately took off, you're like, where are you? If you ever see this, I'm sorry. My bad. Yeah. Jeez. Anyway. And I'm all sweaty and disheveled. Hey, Origin. I am okay, apart from a very quick trip to my friend's place. How are you? I hope you're doing well this morning. I've been with the silly goblin for so long. Yeah. I always see you in the comments. It's sad to see his story end. Yeah, I agree. Origin N7D. I agree. I shed some real tears of my own last night. Once I, thinking about, wow, I'm living in a, not to be too dramatic, but in a post Robin Goblin world. It's fucking wild. But here we are. I'm really, sweat. I'm really grateful for everybody who tuned in, loved role playing him in the comments. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool touch. I like that. Whenever, it's always difficult because I try to respect the total vote, but where possible, I try to incorporate stuff that people have in the comments or people say, even if sometimes it's an idea of like, oh, I wanted this to be an option, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. If I can include it as an option later, then I obviously do. But sometimes it's not totally possible. And then, of course, sometimes when people say stuff, I'll try to like put it into the narration or work it in a little bit if I can. And so, yeah, I appreciated that. Fun fact, when I made the first Robin Goblin short, I actually didn't think that anybody would like respond. I made it and I specifically thought to myself, okay, I'll wait because I posted in the morning because I thought I heard somewhere it's good to post in the morning on Monday because people who are going back to work aren't as engaged and they're kind of scrolling on their phones and stuff, and makes enough sense to me. So I thought, okay, I posted it Monday morning, and I was like, I'll wait until, I don't know, 5 o'clock this evening. And if no one has said anything, which I assumed would be the case, then I would ask like a friend to throw in one vote, and then we'd just keep going. Only to give in to my curiosity and check before 5, and people had already voted, and I was over the moon about that, and it just continued. It's pretty crazy. Origin N7D says, by the way, do you plan on doing something similar to Robin Goblin in the future? And my answer is probably. I like this adventure format, and there's already some stuff that I would like to try doing better. So the odds are good I will do something like it in the future at least once more. Um, but it won't be continuous like Robin Goblin was. If I do something like this again, it will probably be for the span of, I'd say, a few months, like 2 or 3 months, depending on how long it takes for the particular adventure to resolve. So if I do something similar, it's going to be with different characters, and it's going to be limited runs instead of just doing it continuously. And that's basically what you're going to get in the vein of like the choose your own adventure style stuff. Should I do more? Which I would like to, at least a little bit. You finish something and then you think about stuff you could have done better, and you're like, I don't know. That'd be cool. And that's my answer to that. I remember it's kind of crazy. The reason why I started doing Robin Goblin in the first place was because I had recently found a blog that talks about running mazes in an abstract way with a deck of playing cards. And I had used it with like my Saturday game group, and I really enjoyed it, and they seemed to really enjoy it. And so it's like I got the idea to do it like in shorts, and I thought, oh man, it'd be so easy because it's just a maze. So like once you've drawn all the backgrounds, then uh, you're all good, and it'll be super easy to do. Which it was until the second adventure where I was like, but what if I did actual backgrounds? And immediately regretted it. I mean, it was all right, but like backgrounds aren't exactly my favorite or my strength. So that was fun, making things more complicated for myself. Origin N7D says, guess it's okay. Robin is a very special experience. It's like playing in a campaign for the first time. Yeah, I agree. In fact, when I would talk to people about the games that I was running or in, I would treat Robin Goblin as a campaign because, it basically is. And, all the people voting were my players. They did my best to, get their options in or try to put them in later. Something. Okay. I will also just call you Origin. Something that I definitely don't have an answer for, but I wish I did, was there are times where people suggest a unique option in the comments. I hope you continue on with the format. Thank you very much, my friend. I will, at least a little, though not quite like this. Though later today you will hear much more than you could have bargained for about that. I was about to ramble about how I do think that it is a bit of a shame that sometimes people would have a unique option that I really liked, and when you post your own option under the other, like YouTube the YouTube gang seems to roll pretty solid. So oftentimes when someone was like, let's do this instead, like I think the YouTube people were like reading the comments and like conferring. It seemed like that happened more often than with TikTok. Instagram group was very tight, so like they saw each other's comments clearly. But across the board, if a bunch of people on TikTok don't have an idea that like this unique option has been put forward, and I thought about, and who knows, maybe I'll actually try it next time. But I thought about when there's a unique option that somebody posts that I think is cool, making a quick short of me just saying, hey, there's this option that someone put forward that I think is cool. You can vote for that instead if you would like. But I always ended up talking myself out of it because I was like, well, are people really going to watch it if it's my face? I mean, maybe. It seemed kind of messy, but maybe I'll try it next time just because occasionally someone has an idea that I was like, that's pretty cool. I think that's cool and good. I'm going to respect the vote, so I'm not just going to arbitrarily go, this is going to be it, actually. But I still like it. In fact, it doesn't happen all the time, but there are definitely some times where an option wins that is not the option that I like the most. But that is part of this and also part of GMing. Your players come up with stuff and you roll with it as best you can, unless for whatever reason you cannot. Origin says YouTube comments are much more interactive than other platforms for obvious reasons. Yeah, I really feel that. I really feel that. Definitely. Like, even though there's a mobile version of TikTok, I feel like that's true, and I feel like you are very correct, Origin. I think that really nails it. I wouldn't actually do this, but I was like, oh, maybe the next time I do it, I'll do it YouTube only. I've wondered what it would be like if I just stuck to one platform. But after all this, I could never turn my back on the other viewers on the other platforms. Definitely not. As a little side ramble, once upon a time, I had someone ask, "Oh, what if you did like different versions and different choices for like the different platforms?" And I was like, "That sounds really cool. That would be that would be impossible." I didn't say it like that, but I was like, "That would be impossible as it is now." I am not very fast at like drawing or creating, so like making three different options per like one short, totally. I mean, the votes usually align anyway, so like cool. But while that sounds interesting on paper, boy, could I not do that. And I just said, it's a little too complicated for me to do. Cool idea, but a little too complicated. Something that I want to say. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little, uh, you know, worried about the ending. And I want to say that I'm very glad to see how many people, basically everybody, who is cool about it. I appreciate that. If anybody from any of the platforms see this, I appreciate that. I really do. Origin says, can you imagine how much work it'll take for each platform to have its own outcomes? God, yeah, uh, I can. Like, it wasn't always this way, but like for the majority of the time, like it took me like about 6 hours to put together to draw the stuff for it and then do the editing and stuff. So I would have to find 12 additional hours 3 times a week to do the outcomes for like each separate platform. So yeah, it would be insane. I couldn't even imagine it. Like, even if I were to discard everything else I was doing in my life, like, man, it sounds interesting. I'm interested on like a theoretical level of, oh, I wonder where different people would end up. Would different would different alternate routes like end early? Is there like one platform where Robin would die? Would one platform do badly? I don't think so. But imagine. But then like obviously the practical level is like, man, I could not. I couldn't even. There are ideas that you have that are like, it's interesting enough that I'm willing to take a shot at it, even though it's a bad idea, also known as all the ideas I pursue. And then there are ideas where I'm like, no, not even, I couldn't even for a second. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. I like the idea of doing. I'm going to be too busy to do it this year, but I actually like the idea of doing like a zombie survival themed, like choose your own adventure. Um, I think I'd make it a little more. I don't think I would use a specific system for it exactly, because like I like the idea, and obviously with Robin Goblin, I definitely used like stats and rules and things for Shadow Dark, which is fairly open ended. You know, if I've wondered if the series would be better, more rules light. GB Hart says zombie themed. Hell yeah, yeah, man, totally. I think that'd be awesome. I think I'm going to be a little too busy that I didn't want to be. I every year I always want to do a little something special for Halloween in some way, shape, or form. And every year something just gets in my way that I'm like, okay, never mind. This year it's definitely going to be um, Treasure Takers, my animated series, with episodes here on YouTube, in case anybody didn't know. I'm not just the Robin guy. I'm a little behind on. I want to have multiple episodes done by November, and I'm a little behind as it is. So I've recently thought, I'm probably not going to have time this October either. So next October, when only the loyalists of my fans are still around, you may get more, but just like a different kind of way. There's also something that is more fantasy related. There's this crypt adventure that I think would be cool to do in some fashion. I might do that instead. It's definitely more. It's definitely still like got the fantasy part in it because I conceived of it as a fantasy adventure, kind of. So we'll see. I briefly thought, man, what if I just started making like choose your own adventures style stuff in general and started putting it out? And what if that was my brand? I could be like other people that see some success and then try to diversify within their niche, and then people don't like it as much. Or maybe people would. I don't know. It was just kind of a thing. I'll only ever do stuff that I'm like particularly interested in, so we'll see. I still very much like the idea of doing one of these adventures and then going, hey, there's a written adventure. Origin asks, you planning on doing Discord campaigns again? I am, actually. I would like to do that again. I just have not. And then sometimes, well, not sometimes, I just haven't, but I would like to. The Discord is not going anywhere. And at some point, again, I would like to try to like throw out stuff. There was one person on the TikTok group who wanted in on one of the games and maybe couldn't make it or something when we did it. When we did it, that person was supposed to be in there and just kind of didn't respond or was busy or something. So I would like to do it again because that was fun and cool. And yeah, I would love to try to play it once. I thought you were in the one that we did, Origin. Were you not? I thought it was you. Uh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Oh, weird. Okay. Then that's really weird because I totally thought that like the one time that I ran a game with like people watching the Robin Goblin series, I totally thought that it was you and like two other people. I guess I'm misremembering. Then yeah, I mean totally. Then next time perhaps you will be able to. Coordinating that kind of stuff is a little difficult, though it is worth it. I got to run some folks through like the actual like Moonlit Castle that I have, because that is a real adventure that I have like written notes for, and I made like some basic maps. I don't have a laptop, only phone, and the website didn't work that well. I am part of like a Sunday group of people, and there's one dude who usually has to connect on his phone. And when we used Roll20, it was a little difficult as well. So you're not alone. That's a bummer, but that does happen. We now use Foundry, like the virtual tabletop Foundry, which is still pretty challenging. Uh, but I think that the GM of our Sunday thing has made some adjustments. Then again, I don't make any adjustments whenever we switch over to me, so I don't know. Oh damn, you also had difficulty with Roll20. That's a bummer because I talk shit about. I've talked shit before about Foundry, and not. And you guys, you're undermining my points. Uh, there was a time where I was talking to my friend specifically, and I said, "Hey, I think that Roll20 is better than Foundry because Foundry is supposed to automate everything for you, but then when it doesn't, you take time troubleshooting things. That takes time away from the game and breaks the flow. But with Roll20, because it's not automated, you have to put your own stuff in. Thus, you save time dealing with and troubleshooting the automation." And I half said it because I knew that it would make my friend mad, and it did. And that was fun, but like cheeky mad. It wasn't serious. But I also kind of feel that way still. So come on, you gotta pretend that you don't actually have to pretend. You gotta pretend. You gotta pretend that Roll20 is flawless, even though it's totally not. Though honestly, that's something to ramble a little bit. Virtual tabletop stuff. Um, Actually, no. To ramble in the abstract, but is also related to like virtual tabletop. Um, I definitely feel like when you play in person, there's a little less pressure to have like visuals and stuff. People do fancy things with like figures and maps and what have you. I typically don't do that, but when I'm doing like online games, there's a little bit more pressure to do that. And sometimes it can be fun when like you're really into making a performance, a show, but you're not super psyched. Even if you like doing it and running games, which I do, you're not super psyched about every session like to that level. And sometimes even I get nervous. I'm running a Star Wars game right now every now and again for like my Sunday group of friends. I'm alternating with the other GM. And I get so nervous about finding like good sci-fi maps because there are like a million. This is way off topic, but I guess complain if you don't like it. Um, I get really nervous about finding good sci-fi maps because there are like a million fantasy maps because D&D is the world's only role-playing game. So, that's easy. But when it comes to like, oh, finding good sci-fi maps, like I've found some Patreons that like put those out, but at the same time, it's still, I don't know. I already have a bit of a difficulty because I don't pick the map and then make the session. I make the session and then find the map, which obviously means you're going to run into some constraints. But even then, there are programs where you can make your own maps, but the majority of the stuff in those is fantasy because, again, fantasy is the more prevalent in the role playing spaces. So I'm like, I don't know. And then there's Robin Goblin, where I have to draw everything anyway. There was a point where I thought about maybe taking screen cap, maybe building models in Tailspire, which is a VTT that has a bunch of pre-made models that you can set up for backgrounds and things. And I thought for a while about making backgrounds with like screen capping stuff in Tailspire and then drawing the figures over it. Uh, but I ultimately felt like one, it's going to be a little jarring if there's like a bunch of 3D objects and then I draw figures over it. I wouldn't think twice about it if I'd done it from the start, but I kind of felt weird about doing it that way, like changing to that way. So I didn't. Not to mention at the time, I was like, well, you're already like drawing over and modifying references of like pictures, like because I use photo reference and things like that, as one does. So it's like you're already doing that. Would drawing over a screen cap of 3D models really be that much better, faster? And I ultimately decided it wouldn't be enough to justify it. So I just kept doing what I was doing, and it's fine, or it was fine. And hopefully it will continue to be fine. Man, I'm a little annoyed, actually. Not at anything serious, but I wish Robin Goblin could have ended on like an even number, or I think it did, but the number of Vault of Lions that I ended on was 39. So the actual adventure number was like 39. Vault of Lion was 39 parts. I'm like, man, it'd be cool if it was even. It's just a mild thing. Origin says, it's funny how I watch D&D campaigns all the time, yet never played D&D once. It's like liking Cult of the Lamb, but never playing Cult of the Lamb. I have sympathy for that. There's a ton of stuff that like I'm a big fan of a ton of stuff that I've either barely played or not played at all. Like, I know a reasonable amount about Resident Evil, but I haven't played a Resident Evil game. Though I hope to rectify that as soon as I can. And then there's also the dimension that getting a group together to play D&D is difficult in and of itself. Like, it is notoriously difficult to get to corral people together. So it's like doubly hard. There are plenty of people out there who are like, man, I like D&D a lot, but I've never played it. It's like, man, I feel for you. I am very lucky in that I have a group of high school friends that I've played with basically forever, and then I was also able to attract enough people at my game shop, though even that took me going out of my way to like call on people. So yeah, I hope that you do. Unfortunately, I have a great disability that prevents me from playing most games. Well, that's also a bummer, and I'm sorry to hear that, Origin. Ah, I see. It's going around. It's going around, Origin. It's always going around, being broke. Though right now, due to an art job that I did recently, I am doing fairly well. But I know what that is like. And got my friend saying, I hear you. I do the same with many games where I watch others play them, but never play them. Yeah, man. In fact, I have literally played House of the Dead before, but only a little bit. The amount of House of the Dead I have played compared to how big like a fan I am of it is like so bizarre to me. Like, I have opinions about things. I remember I have on more than one occasion thought, we could make a good House of the Dead movie. I bet. Like, it won't be very long if we just kind of do this and this. I could even type it up. I could even type it up, feel like, yeah, man. People would be like, oh, so you've probably played the game a bunch of times. Like, nope. I watch it though. And one of my go-to fun watches, this rail shooter from I don't even know what year. But dude, the starting cinematic for House of the Dead is so cool and so raw. I tried to do a House of the Dead session once in a game that I was running. It super did not work because I didn't realize the difference between. I hadn't fully grasped the idea of, hey, you need to actually adapt something for a role playing game instead of just translate it one to one because it's going to be different. And I was like, oh man, it led to a very boring session for those people. Hoo boy. Origin says, I had the same problem with shows and movies until I started sailing the seven seas. Not gonna lie. Yeah, In fact, man, I really think it's bogus that, you want to be involved in stuff and you want to be able to talk about stuff, and then sometimes that stuff costs money. Like, things are worth money, and time and effort are worth being paid for. But at the same time, do I really have to buy like the latest game every several months just so I can talk about it with my friends? That sucks. Do I really need to go out and pay? It's a little cheaper for movies, but do I really have to go out and pay for like the latest movies just so I can like talk with other people about them? That's kind of whack. And then you get your sea legs and you're like, all right, I see what they mean by the Mandalorian and Grogu not being the greatest, because I recently saw that, and you know now I can have opinions on it too. Yeah, totally. It's bogus. It's bogus. Money is bogus. Treasure is cool in games, but in real life, I really think we should just let everybody live. Sounds like a good idea to me. So whack. Man, it's been a little over a year and a half since I did like the first Robin Goblin ever, because I did it in December. Another thing that bothers me minorly, even though I am the one, finishing it, a little over a year and a half, not 2 years. But I mean, that's how it is. In fact, um, yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is. But I still am like, man, couldn't we end on an even thing? And it's like, nah. When you come up, when an ending comes up, it comes up, and you go for it. Or at least that's my current position. I also thought about streaming more in general. Origin says, I'd say that's 2 years spent well. Yeah, I would too. Like, not only was it cool and it was a fun ride and it was cool doing the stuff with y'all, but I also have some lessons that I learned from it that should be and will be, I think, useful for my Treasure Taker series, which I am still working on. I mean, there are episodes up now, but I'm working on other episodes. I referenced it earlier, it's fine. It has been a wonderful ride, and it has been a great learning experience. It's been great overall. I've even thought before about, like, what if I went back in time or found myself suddenly like high school age again, and I would not want to, by the way, because there's tons of stuff I would have to go through again that I would not want to. But I have also thought, on the list of experiences of what do I do again versus what do I skip, this is definitely one of those things that, like, yeah, I should do this again. I would do this again. There's nothing you could really do about that outside of stretching it to an uncomfortable level. Ending it where you did was a good call. I think so. And I would hope that I would think so, because I did it. But yeah, I think so. I definitely don't want to do, as much as I love the audience and people watching, I definitely don't want to get to the point where I'm doing it just to please other people. And I'm not. Even if it is sad ending it. Unless you're a godly writer. Well, I am not a godly writer. I do okay. You know who's really good? Just to side again? Hunter the Parenting. Hunter the Parenting is a series on YouTube by the Alpha Busa channel, and it's about normal people hunting the supernatural. It's fantastic. It's got a ton of stuff out. I love it very much. I'm bringing it up because I don't want to oversell Hunter the Parenting, but I used to hear people call things good writing, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But like watching Hunter the Parenting, I actually felt like I understood what good writing is. There's tons of stuff that you hear other people that I hear other people say about good series. Oh, the characters are three-dimensional. The characters exist outside of themselves. You know, they're not just cardboard cutouts, they're like real people that have their own wants and needs. And, you know, there need to be stakes, and the stakes need to be personal, but they also need to be understandable and blah, blah, blah. And I've obviously seen and read things that would qualify as good writing, but watching Hunter the Parenting, the indie animated series here on YouTube at the Alpha Busa channel, fucking watch it, please. Super good. Origin says, I saw clips of it, but never actually watched Hunter the Parenting. Well, I would highly recommend it. I mean, obviously, I never want anybody to feel like pressured, but I love the series so much that the least that I can do is evangelize for it. I think it's great. I originally watched like the first 3 episodes in a row because that's what was linked at the time in the Discord that I was in. And I'm also interested in like indie series, but I liked what I saw and I kept on watching it, and it's great. The comedy is goofy, but it's goofy in a way that I like, and it also like it has real characters, and the story is also really good. There are many times where I rewatch an episode and I notice stuff that I didn't before, which I think is a sign of a good series, at least. Um, it's just very good. It's got a new episode coming out later today, but there's like tons of episodes before that. They don't put out stuff very often. They do their best, but like they're the kind of indie model where it's like, okay, it's gonna be like months before we post again. But when we post again, you're getting something that's really meaty. I think the earlier episodes are around like 20 to 30 minutes, which is a fucking lot, even with a team. And then like later episodes are like longer than that, like close to an hour. The animation, so to speak, is very simple, but even still, I would say that it's amazing. And I would ask if you're even slightly interested in normal people hunting the supernatural, to give it a shot. If only because I like it enough to evangelize for it. Origin says, we'll definitely add it to my long list of, hey, you should watch this at some point, that keeps on growing and is not shrinking fast enough. Yeah, that's how those lists go. I have some stuff to get to myself, actually. And I will. It wasn't on my list, but I've semi-recently started watching The Sopranos. It's pretty good. I've been enjoying that. And I'm not going to lie, it hasn't made me super interested, but it has made me a little more interested than not in running a particular kind of campaign. People talk about kingdom management being part of D&D in the olden times, and that can be cool, but like The Sopranos it's about mobsters, but a lot of it is about, we see a lot of like mobsters dealing with the day-to-day politics of stuff. Origin says, by the way, A Life Well Lived is perfect for Robin the Goblin story. I think so too. I think so too. It's good stuff. And unlike sometimes where there's a good end and then later you find out the character, something that bothers me is basically what I'm now going to ramble about, is occasionally I will read a story and it will come to an end and it will be a good end, And then later you find out in like a later sequel, oh, that character actually had a bad end after that good end. And I always think that sucks. So, spoilers, that's not going to happen with Robin. We're not going to find out like several months down the road or a year down the road. Oh, actually, afterwards, like things went to crap. No. Let characters have good ends, I say. Like sometimes it's thematic to the story itself, but sometimes it just comes off as a dick move. And I'm like, did you really need to do that, writer? Because I'm not talking to the writer, I don't get a response. But I'm like, I don't think you needed to do that. I'm not going to do that. Robin's had a good adventure, and now he gets to consult with people. People pay him for his knowledge as he gives his opinion on matters in security, adventuring, and banking. The bank stuff was actually an addition because somebody mentioned it amongst the comments, and I was like, yeah, man. GRB Hart says, depends on the story. I sometimes like that, sometimes hate it. All depends on the setting. Yeah, pretty much. It can definitely make sense and work. I'm not going to spoil them, but there are two examples explicitly where you could argue one of them makes sense, but I'm like, man, did you really have to do that? And then there's another one that I have much less context for that I'm like, man, did you really need to do that? But I will not spoil those. Though I will say that Hunter the Parenting hasn't ended, so I'm definitely not talking about that. In fact, it's interesting. I can't think of a Hunter the Parenting story like development that I've ever like hated, which is not necessarily an argument to its quality. Yeah. It didn't happen, but in the Robin Goblin series, there was a certain adventure hook that people didn't vote to take. But if we had, I had this bit about how you would run into the kid of Neil, the first guy that you partied with. And I thought it would be fun if that happened and the kid would like recognize, this is when we still had Neil's sword, but the kid would like recognize the sword and that would be like a whole thing. It didn't end up happening, but I thought it would be fun. I also at one point in time thought, what if Robin dies and then we just cut to like that kid? I thought that would be fun. Neither of those happened. But little behind the scenes things at one point that I was thinking about. Thought it might be fun. Because Neil's fighting for a kid, or trying to. That kid's out there somewhere. I could use him. I'm not super gung-ho on using him, though I could. And then, like, maybe two people would be all like, oh, really? Yeah. You know what's been an additional wild thing about this? GRB Hart says, Neil! Didn't we find him a locket that he had with a drawing of him and his kid? I think that we did. I think that we took a locket from him. Neil was used up. Yeah, Neil ate it. Neil ate it super hard. Like, boy did he. I actually liked Neil. I mean, I like all the Deltarune reference, by the way. I've heard the Deltarune is good. I downloaded the like free demo or something once and then never played it. I've heard it's good. Maybe I will. I played Undertale, but I didn't beat it. Hey, Leo Tubi. I hope you're doing well this morning. Just on here rambling about Robin Goblin and related things. A fun minor experience from doing all this. There's like one episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the card Robin Goblin gets used. And so now I'm basically mandated by law whenever I watch that episode. And he goes, I played Robin Goblin, to go, hey! Cool card. Evocative character design. So evocative, I made a series about it. I think I have a Robin Goblin card as well. I'm not positive. I might. But yeah, Neil, I like all the party members that I introduce, and one of the party members that we didn't take is actually a reference, a Hunt to the Parenting reference, but they never got chosen. The party members that we all get, I like them all. But I remember making Neil, and I was like, yeah, cool, another party member, only for him to like almost immediately eat it. Like first fight that you get in. That imp was stronger than I thought. Like I like a dangerous game, so it's fine. But at the same time, I was like, wow, really? Immediately? Neil had like a mage armor type spell, and I totally thought later, man, he probably should have cast that on him first. He probably should have cast mage armor on himself before going in. Oops. Yeah, but that kind of thing happens when you're playing all the characters. Bro got smited, says Leo Tubi. He did actually. He got smited. We got smited. Yes. The imp, you're very correct, GRB Heart. That imp killed us too. And were it not for a critical on Robin's part, he would have just died. And like there we are. In Shadowdark, when you go to 0 hit points, the basic rules, or no, in Shadowdark, yes. In Shadowdark, when you go to 0 hit points, the basic rules have you roll a d4, and then you add your Constitution modifier, and that's how many rounds you get to stabilize. So you get a stabilization roll each time, where you have to roll, I think you need to roll above a 15 to stabilize. And if someone heals you, obviously that's fine, but in that instance, they're both down, nobody's healing anybody. And stabilization is not the same thing as like coming back with hit points. If you stabilize, you're still at 0, you're just unconscious. So if Robin had stabilized, I would have rolled like for the chance of a monster to, actually I would have decided whether or not the imp would have bothered with you once you were down, and then there would have been the chance that another monster wanders by and like, I don't know, eats you or something. So it was pretty bad. I biffed all of Neil's rolls and he didn't get back up. Robin criticaled one of his, and if you critical, you get back up with 1 hit point. As those who were there know. Origin says Deltarune is absolute peak. That's what I've heard. The fandom is on constant crack and fentanyl, and they made the man who speaks in hands, Gaster, I've heard of him, into a green pirate. The parrot became a supposed butcher after killing Onion Sand. Onion Sands? I don't know. Sounds like a time. Maybe one day I'll crack into that. LeoTubi says, if we hadn't stabilized that first time, we would have never had this series. That is true. I may have tried to switch to like a different character or something, but it definitely wouldn't have been the same. That's for sure. There's so much that we did. There's so much that we did, and so much that we went through, and so many moments we had that would not have happened if somebody hadn't written a blog post about running mazes with a deck of cards. And then, if we had not stabilized during that initial adventure, and then there are a couple of other points that I can think of where things also went off the rails. Like during the Moonlit Castle, where we got downed, and it was up to our then party members to carry us along, which they did, and then they had to escape. That enemy party that we fought, boy, was that a big back and forth, which almost immediately ended. So, in Shadowdark, magic is a little more dangerous, but you can also lose spells and have things kick back on you and stuff like that. Um, the sleep spell in Shadowdark, there's no save. You just cast it, and any enemy that's like level 3 or lower falls asleep. That's it. The enemy party had someone, if you remember, who could cast sleep. At the time, I was thinking, oh man, is everyone just going to get slept and then killed? And is that just how it's going to end? But at the time, our party members were both level 3, and I believe that Robin just happened to be one level higher than them. So if sleep happened, it wouldn't do anything to him. Now, as it turned out, we ended up like splitting up, and then Robin tried to ambush one of them, and all that other stuff happened. But if they'd all stuck together, there very well would have been a moment where somebody ambush cast sleep. Both of, Al and Misty fall asleep, and then Robin's just like, oh, hey. Though it didn't go down like that. But man, that was a real saga. GRB Hearts says, Misty saved our asses so many times. It was devastating to lose her. Yeah, it really was. Origin says, I have multiple D&D characters with folders upon folders of lore, and they are currently collecting dust. Yeah, that is how it be sometimes. That is how it be sometimes. One day, Origin. One day you will be so ready. You'll be so ready. I don't write a ton. I happen to not write a ton of stuff for characters that I make, funnily enough. These days, I keep things pretty simple. As you may be able to tell, Robin, there's like a little bit of background, but not much. I once posted Robin's like full sheet, and someone who was reading at the time like reacted because there's a background section on the sheet, and the background just said wanted, and somebody like reading at the time was like, wanted? What did he do? And then I answered them. Deep Robin lore for the diehards. Robin, once upon a time, wanted to be a merchant, which is what I was referencing with one of the retirement options. And he attempted to get his start by stealing, like by trying to steal stuff so that he could raise money for his own business, is the fictional backstory that I have for him. But of course, that didn't work out, and that's where the wanted background comes from on his character sheet. Is what I explained at the time, and now all you know as well. It's about as far as Robin's backstory goes. Could go a little farther. I actually, fun fact, I tried playing Robin in a game once. My friend wanted to do a Pathfinder game that was based off of the Diablo like video game series. and it sounded like a cool time. And I thought, playing a rogue would be cool. So I actually made Robin, and I used art from the Yu-Gi-Oh card and everything. Unfortunately, that campaign ended up stopping after a little while, but for the initial time, it would have been fun. And I think maybe through playing, I might have come up with some other stuff that may have become canon, and then I would have been annoying about that. Could have been fun. It was fun while I played. It's a good idea for a campaign. I kind of want to do a campaign now. Ever since like the last time that I played through the second game and had a really good time doing it, I was like, man, I kind of want to do that. You know? Origin says the problem is I can't find two of those characters because I already put them in an imaginary campaign that has already ended with multiple other characters in the imaginary campaign. That sounds like a tricky problem. So I'll have to make other characters if I do ever play. Yeah, that's all right. Making characters is fun. I've thought about making, like, I may not do this, but if I ever do another choose your own adventure style thing, I have thought that it might be fun to have some of the shorts be about creating a character for whatever, rolling roles. I'm not sure how well this would work, but it might be kind of fun to have people submit like videos of them rolling for stats or something. That could be fun. Hmm. Yes, I see, Origin. I see. Hmm. I also have thought about like offering several characters for like the next thing I do, and then like letting people choose. That might be cool. And that is effectively what somebody on the Discord that I am on did. On the Robin Goblin Discord, there's a guy who's currently running like a Pathfinder thing. It was open to the whole Discord, but I think maybe other people weren't. They either weren't paying attention or weren't interested. So it's just me, and he gave me like the choice of like several characters, and I just couldn't help but pick the rogue that looks a little bit like the VTuber that I constantly get in my feed talking about D&D lore. Um, and that's been a fun time. That dude does some good work with that. Uh, and like, I don't know, if you happen to be on the Discord, it's not like private or anything. We just fought some skeletons. We're looking at these skeletons. It's cool. Origin asks, by the way, have you ever considered a necromancer fight in the Robin series? I mean, yeah, I like I like necromancers and I like that stuff. Um, it's kind of funny. For as much as I like them, it never came up in the series. But yeah, I have. It just, for whatever reason, we just haven't been in a position where that happened. Though that's especially weird because I really like using that kind of stuff in games, as anybody who's played with me might be able to tell you. Leo Tubi asks, or just says, I don't use Discord as often. Well, yeah, that's how it is. And I've heard that a lot of times when people get inducted into a Discord, they'll like mute everything and then just look at it every once in a while. Since I made the Discord, I don't do that, but like I understand. But now you know. Now you know, Leo Tubi. There's Pathfinder going on. It's true. Though it's a little different origin. It is actually my mom. Just doing stuff. I'm thinking, is there any other crazy background Robin stuff? And the answer is there probably is, but I'm not thinking of it at the moment. GRB Hart says, I thought of something similar. Give the audience three class options, races, etc., and have them choose, basically having the audience build the next character we play. Yeah, I think something like that would be pretty fun. I think like something like that would be pretty fun. Uh, I also kind of want to do something simpler where I offer like several characters, if only because, as if only to segue into this thing that I'm going to talk about. I have like a zombie survival scenario that I wrote that's based on, or it's like set at like a local like national park because I just kind of like it. And when I was originally like giving it like playing it, I got the chance to run it for like my Saturday group because it was a different system. It was a system called All Flesh Must Be Eaten, which is an old zombie system, which is honestly kind of clunky. I probably wouldn't use it again. Uh, I pre-made characters for everybody. The reason why I'm sharing because I found it really humorous. One of the pre-made characters was a goth girl, and like not only did a couple people initially fight over getting the goth girl amicably, but the person who came in late heard about the goth girl pre-generated character was like, dude, I want that. It's like, no, it's already taken. And he was like, oh man. Something else that was kind of interesting. All Flesh Must Be Eaten has like supplementary rules for like magic powers and things that I wasn't using, but like everybody who took the goth girl like half expected her to have magic powers for some reason, and like she did. I modified her for the thing I was running, but I just thought that was kind of funny. So I would like the chance, especially on the internet, to replicate that again. If I did like a zombie thing and I offered like four characters to choose from, I could probably bet that like goth goth girl would probably just get chosen immediately and just be a landslide victory, and just be kind of fun to see that play out again, but online. Mm. I do my best to make the choices relatively well. Okay, I guess I try to make sure that choices aren't obviously like correct or whatever, but it's also really difficult to avoid neutral choices. Uh, but first, I'm going to say the GBR Heart says, well, yeah, she's the gothic baddie. She's got to have some magical abilities. Exactly. I'm delighted that everybody in the universe seems to agree with this logic that I also think is flawless. Something that is a little difficult, but I found insightful while running Robin Goblin, was trying to avoid neutral choices, because oftentimes players will be risk adverse, which is reasonable, but I noticed both in games that I run and Robin Goblin, which is another game I run, but under different circumstances, oftentimes if there was an option to like wait and see, or like just any kind of waiting, or any kind of let's hold on a minute option, it would almost always be the one that got chosen. So a fun fact about writing Robin Goblin, as time went on, I tried to avoid neutral choices because you don't want to make a mistake. And if there's a choice that seems like safe, you know, people will gravitate towards it. Or I should say most people. There are some people who are daring, who are daredevils, and I appreciate you. Like it would be kind of hard sometimes to write options that all moved forward instead of an option that like you wait and then two options that like move differently. Leo Tubby says, well, we're a patient gobby. Got to make sure no one's coming around that corner, especially if we want to get the most loot. That's very true. That's very true. And that's also something that I tried to balance. The sensibilities of like being a thief, because that's what Shadow Dark calls their rogues, because they harken back to like more old school vibes. Trying to balance like the sensibilities of stuff like that versus not making options that just kind of kick back and let the game kind of happen. impactful choices, or at least choices that move forward. Origin says, by the way, one of my characters is a noble immortal who made a deal with the Fae. He basically bakes them magical treats, and they do his bidding. I imagine him as a fighter Fae subclass. Neat. I want to do some stuff with the Fae. We saw a Fae during our time that was in that wizard tower. I'm going to put these on. Glasses jump scare? I don't know. Because I was squinting there, and it's like, let's have our glasses, actually. We saw a Fae, and I actually had a little bit of fun knowing what she was about when so many people were like, let's try to get her to help. Maybe she'll help. And, people assuming, oh, this Fae in this wizard tower, she's obviously a captive, only for her to just be all like, no, actually. I mean, I don't think anybody asked or got the chance to ask. When people put in, this is something that if I were to do it over again, I'd try to make it more explicit. Don't mind my silence, by the way. I'm absolutely cooking on Dragon Ball Legends. Cool. You know what I've been doing recently? I have recently been watching the Dragon Ball Z abridged commentary stuff that a couple of the creators are doing. It was suggested to me by at least a couple friends, and I've been having a great time recently working on stuff and then listening to these two dudes talk about like the making of the show, what they did, and like jokes that got cut and stuff like that. Like director's commentary kind of stuff. It's been pretty cool. It just reminded me of that. But yeah, there was a time in that wizard tower where we encountered that Fae, and people thought, oh man, we should get her help, only for that to turn out to maybe not be the best. I got to smile behind my screen a little bit there, so I was like, yeah, you think she's gonna help you, and she might, but like, only to her amusement. I remember it's always fun when I get like compliments from viewers, and there was at least one viewer after when you asked like, hey, because we ended up asking her, hey, help us with the invisible stalker, and she was like, sure, and then she made the invisible stalker steal. And she's like, hi, there, you can see it, it's revealed. And I remember like one person was like, good move on that. I was like, yeah, thanks. I don't think of myself as very tricky, but that was inspired. It's like, it's revealed. It's got a much higher armor class now, but it's been revealed. It's like, yep, thank you. Thank you so much, Fairy. Later. Origin. The treats he makes are his spell slots. He is also the Baron of the Kingdom military, trying to end subjugation against beast folk, who are treated like black people in the 1900s, but even worse. Sounds rough. Sounds rough. I was just thinking, we streamed for a good bit. I'd like some cool factoids to share, but I didn't write any out. I've shared some cool facts. Cool bug facts. No. Cool Robin facts. Oh. Did any of you notice that we dodged a party member? Did you? Did you, chat? Did you notice that we avoided a party member? We could have had one more. Pause. Pause for effect. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But I will explain. In what turned out to be the second to last adventure that like bright and colorful woman who woke us up was potentially a new party member. When you carouse, the mechanic in Shadow Dark for carousing, where you basically that's what the partying was each time, can get you bonus experience. And then there's a chart that you roll on that has different things that happen during it. Some of them negative, like you are bilked for like 5% of your total cash by a shady priest or something. But some of it is positive. And sometimes one of the results of carousing is you gain a follower of a certain type. That's how we got Misty, actually. When we were carousing, I rolled, oh, you get a priest ally. And I was like, okay, well, we voted, the vote said Al, but the carousing gave us a priest ally, so I guess Misty too. After the celebration that we did in Emor, the carousing result gained us a bard ally, and that's who she was. Just hopped in. Did we cover what's happening next? Yes, actually, in that I'm going to do something like this in the future, but it's going to be a different character and it's going to be a more limited run and not like continuous like Robin was, for reasons. And probably not for a bit. Though I am going to be doing work on like my main series, Treasure Takers, so stuff will be posted, but it won't be like choose your own adventure stuff. Also, welcome. Thilmany? P. Thilmany. Shoot. I did my best. Welcome, regardless. Happy to have you with us. I was just talking about how we actually, in Robin Goblin, dodged a party member. When we party, there's a mechanic called carousing that Shadow Dark uses, where you get different results in addition to bonus experience for spending your money and partying. And sometimes some of the results are bad, like you lose 5% of your money because a shady priest like cons you or something. Some of them are more neutral, and some of them are good, including getting new followers. When we were partying at Emor, one of the results that I rolled said that we gained a bard follower. That's the colorful lady that woke us up initially and told us about what we had done, like how Robin had sung a song and led a big song in the bar about a senator that everybody dislikes. Shortly after that, we went invisible to escape like his thugs that came in to rough us up, and unwittingly left that bard lady who wanted to join us, though she hadn't said that yet, uh, by herself. And I had in my mind, okay, she's going to try to find you, but it just never worked out. Like, she was doing her best to find us after that, spoiler alert, but, with the timetable and where she was looking and what she had heard, we just kind of accidentally, yeah, exactly, whoops. And I even thought, like, for different adventures where it made sense, I was going to add her to the random encounter table because she wants in. She's heard that you're really cool. And then maybe one day we'd roll a random encounter and just be heard, but like, I've been looking for you. So I guess, kind of funny little side thing. I even was talking about how we got Misty in a similar way. Way back when we were celebrating, the vote for a new party member voted for Al, the axe-wielding fighter, but the carousing roll that I made at that time said you gain a priest ally. Misty is a priest, so I just, that's why we got both in that instance, because I rolled that and I was like, well, Misty's right there. Why not? That's kind of fun. Just, maybe I might have overdone it on the colors, but I also liked that Bard's design. And Bards in Shadow Dark are pretty cool. They have this ability to like fascinate enemies that can be pretty useful. And I guess this is like another behind the scenes thing. In Shadow Dark, you get something called a luck token each session. And you get to spend that luck token kind of like inspiration in D&D, where you get to re-roll a roll that you made. Beotupi says, I mean, that sucks. She seemed neat, but I doubt if we stayed, we'd live. You'll never know. And Origin, that's fine. But you know, it's cool, but maybe not quite the video for the lore dump. I appreciate you sharing, but maybe not right at this moment. Or roll it back a little bit. Back on to the topic that I was talking about, if I can remember, because I practice Vancian talking, where it just leaves my brain after I've said it. Oh, yes. In Shadow Dark, you get a luck token every session, which lets you re-roll a roll. I had thought about at one point like making it the audience's option to like use luck tokens, but I was very worried about giving too many options. I didn't want the screen to be all clouded, so I typically okay. I am not sure. Origin, maybe I don't know, maybe try general. I'd have to look at the Discord. I didn't want to give too many options at like the screens, so I ultimately just decided, well, with luck tokens, I'll just say every 10 videos is a session. Is that a good measure? I don't know, but that's the measure I went with. And then I just used them. Okay. I just used them at times that I felt were critical. Like, if we went down and we're trying to stabilize and we had a luck token, I would use it. I would use luck tokens for characters that were going to die. Or if like it was a really important check or spell, I would just use that. The reason why I'm sharing this is because bards in Shadow Dark can inspire people and give them their luck tokens back, which could have been interesting as well. I am in a Shadow Dark game, which is a conversion of the old D&D adventure Temple of Elemental Evil, and that's been going pretty great. My GM's been doing a good job. And one of their characters is a bard, and the times where we've had the bard along, that's been pretty cool. I think the fascinate ability of theirs is, I like the fascinate ability better because there was a time where we fascinated a group of tiger men and then just killed them one by one, and that was really helpful. But everybody else is like, oh, luck tokens back, which is good, don't get me wrong. Pretty cool. Bards can be pretty useful in Shadow Dark and in general. There's a bard in like the D&D game that I'm running. One of the players is a bard. He's been pretty helpful. He generally plays like a support type role, and he's done a good job. But yes, once upon a time, we inadvertently dodged a party member, and she canonically spent like her time looking for us. At one point, heard, I don't know, she probably at one point heard, actually, no, we were invisible. So we were also invisible. She really picked the wrong person to try to track. So there's this bard woman who's like, okay, I heard that this goblin sung a song and led an entire tavern in a song about a corrupt politician. He seems really cool. I woke him up because I found him drunk, and then he, some thugs came in. He gave me the slip. I tried looking for him, and then a little while later, I heard that like this is lore that I don't think was in the actual adventure. Like, I don't think it came up, but like that wizard we were messing with was like the powerful patron of one of the senators. And so there's a point like after we leave where one of those senators like gets in trouble or loses their position because they're without their powerful mage ally. And there's this big political shakeup in Emor. So this bard woman is like, well, I tried to find that guy again. I couldn't find him, and now like the political state of the city I'm in is destabilized. I feel like the goblin had something to do with this. Man, where is he? And then sometime later, she must hear, oh hey, there's this legendary goblin that obtained the Holy Grail and now like consults on stuff. And she's like, damn, what a cool guy. I wish I could have been around for whatever the hell he was doing. eh, you know. Uh, Bard seemed very fun. What was her alignment? Was it someone that could have grabbed the grail? You know, funnily enough, maybe actually, did I make her character sheet in advance? Let me see. There's a website called Shadow Darklings that lets you make Shadow Dark characters very easily. If I made her character in advance, I can tell you definitively, but I think the answer may have been no. Okay, I think this is it. I think this is her. Though I'm definitely playing to radio right now because obviously I'm not. I don't have my screen shared. Um, what human bard background scholar? Where is it? Where's her alignment? No, she's neutral too. Sounds like she could have her own series. You know, that actually sounds really cool. That's maybe. I hadn't thought of that. Maybe actually. Is Robin going to come back as an NPC in the future? Asks Julian Mesta. Yeah, probably. Because that's too cool not to reference. Yeah, almost certainly. Robin will definitely be an NPC or will get referenced in some fashion because, I mean, I just can't help it. I have even thought about putting him in my Treasure Taker series, though I'm not sure that will happen. But I thought, that could be cool. You could have her be an option in the next campaign. That sounds like a great idea. And you know what? I think I will. The next time that I do something like this, which I don't think will be for a bit, but the next time I do something like this, yeah, I have to remember that because she sounds great. And I got the character sheet already, so sure, why not? She's cool, or rather, I think she's cool. I thought at the time, hey, are you going a little too overboard on her character design? You got to draw it quickly and simply, or you got to be able to. Though, if I like an idea enough, that doesn't stop me. Thank you, Leo Tubi, who said, I think she's neat as well. That's cool. When I made her, I was thinking about this historical. I read something once about some woman who existed that was like an opera singer, fencer, like duelist, who sounded really cool when I read it. And I'm like, that sounds cool. That's who I'm going to make. And then I looked at the thing and I was like, are bards allowed to use swords? And the answer was murky. Not murky. I think they can, but only certain kinds, because Shadow Dark is a little more restrictive about who can use what weapons, which I am down with. So yeah, definitely. I definitely won't make any promises, but that sounds cool. And the easiest way to motivate me to do something is to have me think, that sounds cool. Though I definitely have other stuff that I must focus on in the short term. not the least of which being my Treasure Takers series. I hope to put out multiple animated episodes this November instead of just one, and so it's going to be, you know, difficult. I'm going to try to get back on track. Those those spoilers. If I get inspired, then you'll know. You'll know if you follow me and YouTube doesn't bury me, which is a coin flip. Then you'll find out. I might even get bold enough, and the people who I see who I know are really interested. I don't think YouTube lets me do this exactly, but if it does, maybe I'll try to send something out to those people specifically. Leo Tubi says, me, when I make a cool character, but due to circumstances out of my control, I can't use them. Yeah. It totally be like that sometimes. You're like, man, oh well, someday. You'll be like other people who are like, I have characters that I want to use, which is not usually me, but it sometimes is. Sometimes. I'm not sure if it would be too much, but I think next time I want to make it more obvious. I want to somehow make it more obvious that you can use items, because items tend to sit in inventory. Though I think y'all, the YouTube crew especially, were pretty good about looking at the inventory and stuff. The queen monster that we ran away from to steal the scepter should come back at some point. Her design was sick. I agree, and I'm glad that you feel so. I got a few comments on that design, and I'm really glad that I did, because that's me. That's a design that I came up with, though I refined it a little bit for actual use in the series. But I drew a rough draft of that design forever ago when I was in art school, and I was like, this is cool. I'll save this. I bet I could use it for something. And then I did. I think she's sick, and I'm not sure, but she might actually just rule that castle now. There's some other stuff that we didn't see happen at that castle, but she might actually rule that castle now instead of how it was with a bunch of fiefdoms that are monster run, and that chimera, that poor chimera, yell at a goblin stealing from the castle, unknowingly get pickpocketed, later get ratted out, and then killed. We really left a bunch of bad things roaming around in that world. Kind of. Lion Man didn't stand a chance. Not against her, that's for sure. Not against her. Also, I'm sad that our boy the Ink Dragon got freaking annihilated. Yeah, me too. He had a good run. I've been thinking about where would you find magic ink, and I had some ideas. We didn't get there, but I had some ideas. There are little hints of it in the series, but something that I find fun, and who knows, no promises, but might come up one day. Robin has slowly developed his own rogues gallery, and he might not even know it, because we already saw one time where one of them came up and tried to specifically attack him. For a little background, that moment in the cursed castle where we went down into the dark and got ambushed, that ambush was no random encounter. That ambush was being led by one of the wives of Chief Hackshear, that hobgoblin captain that we killed. She is out hunting Robin because she wants revenge. And in addition to her, there is, especially after we foiled his plans at the same location, there is that evil druid that ran off who has a vendetta against Robin for sure, because he doesn't I don't think he knows that Robin like messed with his plans first, like initially, but like do you remember when we went to the Sunken Abbey, which was the first place where that evil druid was, though we didn't see him, we just saw his subordinates? Well, on the way we ran into some knights and we told them about like what was up, and they had more information than they had before after speaking with us. So I don't think I alluded to it in the series, but in the background, like these knights left and then got more reinforcements and then came back. And then that druid guy, his plans at the Abbey got foiled, and he was like, "Man, how do these knights find me? Okay, I'll just regroup at this cursed castle because that has like this evil tree, this vampire tree that I have been nurturing, and I should be unchecked there, only for Robin to like directly mess with his plans there." So somewhere out there, there is uh, the people that are Mirror. Are they dead? If not, they're going to be very pissed if they ever get out. So this is something else that I will go ahead and I will talk about for anybody who's interested in like some extra lore type stuff. The mirror, the river sprite mirror that we have, its waters are tended basically by river sprites. And the reason why you have to trade items in and out of it is because they accept beautiful things. They don't want you to take a beautiful thing without, putting a beautiful thing in that they also like. The people who get put inside that thing are dead. If you put a person in it, they just start drowning. So if they have the ability to teleport, then they could potentially like get away. But other than that, when you put something in there, like they just start drowning. So they are dead. That wizard guy would have escaped, but he totally failed his teleportation roll to get out of there, which I do put Rip the Wizard. Rip the Wizard. He would have been part of the Rogues Gallery. He easily could have been, but he did not escape. In Shadowdark, when you cast spells, you roll to cast instead of using spell slots. And if you fail the roll, then you lose that spell for the rest of the day. And spoilers, I'd been making rolls for that wizard to teleport. That bad roll came for him when he was in the mirror. So, whoops. Bro, we sent them to the infinite drown dimension. You did. You did. So while he is no longer an enemy, Robin has a senator who maybe doesn't know that Robin was specifically the cause, but like he doesn't like him, and things went bad in his life around the time that he sung that song. We have a spurned like hobgoblin former wife whose clan was broken on, through Robin's doing, who is seeking revenge. And we have an evil druid who knows that a goblin and his party foiled his vampire tree shenanigans and wants revenge. Robin actually has like a little rogues gallery walking around, in addition to some kind of fiendish eyeball queen who I guess is grateful to him, if only because she thinks that he's, her advisor, just, possessing a goblin body, which was fun in of itself. It's kind of wild. When Robin got possessed, there's a funny thing about that where I thought, oh, there's a spell that priests get called Protection from Evil, and part of its effects deals with people who are possessed. And so I thought, oh, this is going to be no problem. He has a priest in his party right now. She's just going to cast that, and it's going to expel the spirit. By some weird odds, Bronwyn doesn't have Protection from Evil. And I was like, what are the fucking odds? I put that on basically every priest I ever make. Okay, I guess we're just going to see how this plays out. And then we did. that was an interesting time. An interesting time indeed. If I continue on, I'm sure I can remember other things to talk about, but I don't want to sit here floundering, and I do have other stuff that I also have to get to today, like going shopping and, you know, other interesting things. So, I think for now, I'm going to say thank you for joining me. I hope it was fun. Thank you so much for watching the series. I very much appreciate that, and I'm very glad that it was fun and enjoyable, those who got enjoyment out of it. And I'll be around. I hope y'all have a good rest of the day. Thanks. I appreciate it, man. All right. Thank you for running and making the videos. Thank you for watching the videos. I will have a good one. You too, LeoTubi. Take care.